For countless centuries, a quiet mystery had surrounded a region of space. It was not marked on any star map, nor was it discussed in open forums. It was simply known as the forbidden space. No species, no matter how advanced, dared to venture into this vast stretch of the galaxy. Even the most fearless of explorers hesitated at its edge. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispers of something far greater than any one alien civilization could understand or control. The galaxy had long been aware of this forbidden zone, but most dismissed it as a myth. After all, many other dangerous regions existed, full of uncharted planets, hostile life forms, and dying stars. But human space, as it was later called, stood out for one simple reason. It was avoided. Even the most powerful fleets in the galaxy had never dared enter, and the question of why had been left unanswered. It all started years ago, when a small scouting vessel from the Joran Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, found itself near Earth's borders. The Joran Empire had conquered countless planets, had waged war against rival empires, and had settled in numerous star systems. But there was something about human space that made them nervous. No one knew who had built the barrier that separated Earth's star system from the rest of the galaxy. Some thought it was just a natural phenomenon, but the Jorans were not so easily convinced. They saw themselves as the galaxy's supreme conquerors, the unchallenged rulers of the stars. The Jorans decided it was time to solve the mystery of the forbidden space. A small group of scouts was dispatched to survey the area. The mission was simple: go past the invisible barrier, gather information, and return. The Jorans, confident in their technology and firepower, believed they would quickly uncover the truth about this mysterious region. But from the very moment the scout ship crossed the threshold into human space, something strange happened. At first, there was no visible difference. The stars still shined brightly, and the systems were similar to others they had explored. But as the ship moved deeper into the territory, small glitches began to occur. The navigation system began to malfunction, and communication channels became increasingly unstable. The crew, initially dismissive of these minor glitches, attempted to push forward, but the errors grew worse. In a desperate attempt to fix the ship, the lead officer, Captain Morrow, ordered a manual override, bypassing the ship's automated systems. The moment they did, the situation became far worse. The ship's engines suddenly failed, and the once bright and clear stars outside their viewports began to flicker and distort. The scanners, which had once been able to detect even the smallest objects, now showed only static. No readings came through. They were completely blind. "Captain, I'm not sure what's happening," the ship's engineer, Ilya, reported, her voice shaky. "The entire ship's systems are going offline. It's as if we're being ... blocked." The crew stared at her in disbelief. They were at the very edge of known space, near Earth, and yet no one could explain the situation. "Is this some kind of natural phenomenon?" Captain Morrow asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. He had heard rumors about human space being dangerous, but he had always dismissed them as exaggerations. "I don't think so," Ilya replied. "I've been through anomalies before, Captain, but this ... this is different. We're not just dealing with a space anomaly. It's like something is actively preventing us from getting any further." The crew tried to regain control of the ship, but their attempts were in vain. Nothing seemed to work. No matter how hard they tried, the systems refused to cooperate. It felt like an unseen force was pushing back against them, forcing them to stay within this strange and unknown region. "Captain, we're being pulled in. We need to get out of here," Ilya shouted, panic rising in her voice. But it was too late. The moment the ship attempted to reverse course, the space around them seemed to warp. A bright flash of light filled the viewports, and the ship was thrust into what could only be described as a void. The stars outside their windows disappeared, and they found themselves trapped in an empty, silent space. For a brief moment, there was no sound, no communication, only the eerie hum of malfunctioning systems. Captain Morrow stood at the helm, staring out at the void. What is this?" he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. The crew fell silent, their hearts racing. With fear, the gravity of the situation began to sink in. They had crossed into a place where no species was meant to go, and now they were paying the price for it. This was no ordinary barrier, was something far more complex, far more dangerous, something that the galaxy had long since forgotten about. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other civilizations continued to carry on with their daily lives, unaware of the disaster unfolding at the edge of human space. The Jorans, one of the most powerful empires in the universe, was struggling to understand what was happening to them. And all the while, the galaxy remained ignorant of the true power that lay within the borders of human space. But soon they would all learn. Soon they would all realize why no species ever dared to enter this forbidden zone. And it would change everything. After the Joran scout ship's disastrous encounter at the edge of human space, news of the failure spread like wildfire throughout the galaxy. The Joran Empire, once thought to be invincible, now found itself on the defensive. The Empire's leaders, baffled by the mysterious force that had crippled their ship, ordered an immediate investigation into the phenomena surrounding human space. They could not allow such an anomaly to exist without understanding its sources, if it posed a threat to their dominance. Back on their homeworld, a new fleet was being assembled. This time, they would not send just a handful of ships. The Jorans, unwilling to accept defeat, decided to send their most experienced commanders and their most powerful ships. They would test the barrier once more, but this time they were determined to break through, no matter what it took. The galaxy watched with bated breath as the Empire prepared for what many believed to be the ultimate showdown. Captain Morrow, now a disgraced officer due to the failure of the initial mission, was called back into service. His report had been met with scorn, and many of his peers had laughed at his claims of an invisible force guarding human space. But now, with the Jorans pulling out all the stops, Morrow found himself summoned once again to lead the new mission. His reputation was on the line, but there was no escaping the call of duty. As Morrow stood aboard the command deck of the flagship, his mind raced with unanswered questions. What exactly had happened to his ship? He had seen the anomalies firsthand, but now he was asked to face them again, only with more powerful and advanced technology. There has to be something, Morrow muttered to himself, something we missed. The first time the fleet launched toward human space, the vast darkness stretching ahead of them. 1,000 ships, each armed to the teeth with advanced weaponry, flew in formation. This time, there would be no hesitation. The galaxy's most advanced ships, equipped with powerful shields and weapons, began to cross the threshold. The moment they crossed the invisible line marking the beginning of human space, a strange hum filled the air. It was subtle at first, but then it grew louder, vibrating through the hull of each ship. The commanders exchanged uneasy glances. The fleet continued onward, their destination unclear, but their mission clear. Breach the barrier and uncover the truth. Suddenly, a pulse of energy surged from nowhere, and the fleet shuddered. It was as if the entire region of space was alive, pulsating with energy. The first ship, a massive dreadnought, immediately lost power. Its lights flickered and dimmed, and its engines sputtered to a halt. Within moments, another ship in the fleet began to experience the same phenomenon. Panic spread quickly among the crew members as they tried to regain control. "We've got to turn back," shouted one of the officers, panic evident in his voice. But it was too late. The ships, one by one, began to lose their energy, their shields collapsing under the pressure of an invisible force. The communication system began to glitch, and soon not a single ship could maintain contact with the others. What was happening? Why was this happening again? Captain Morrow, who had expected a fight, now found himself in the middle of an even bigger mystery. This was no simple obstacle. The ships were being systematically disabled, as though something powerful, something sentient was actively preventing them from going any further. As the fleet drifted helplessly, the silent force continued its work. The ships were trapped in the strange space, unable to move, unable to escape. Crew members, desperate for answers, attempted to contact their command centers, but the transmissions were lost in a sea of static. The technology that had once made the Joran Empire so powerful now seemed useless. They were nothing more than helpless ships lost in the unknown. Then, just as it seemed like all hope was lost, a strange pulse of light erupted from the depths of the void. It wasn't like any weapon or technology the Jorans had ever seen. The light was not harsh or blinding, but instead a soft, ethereal glow. It was the color of starlight, the kind that danced in the darkest corners of the universe. The light lingered in the distance, its source hidden from view, but its effects were immediate. The fleet, despite its complete power failure, began to feel a strange, almost hypnotic pull. It was as if the very fabric of space itself was gently coaxing them forward, inviting them to approach the source of the light. For the first time, there was a moment of stillness, a moment of eerie calm. Captain Morrow watched in awe as the glow grew brighter. He couldn't explain it, couldn't understand what he was seeing. But he knew one thing: the galaxy had underestimated human space. It wasn't just a forbidden region. It was a place where something far greater than the Joran Empire had been quietly waiting for millennia. And now, as the fleet unknowingly drifted deeper into the unknown, they were about to uncover a truth that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The Jorans had made their second mistake. They had breached the barrier, and now they would have to pay the price. Asterisk in the heart of the fleet. Captain Morrow stood at the helm of the flagship, a cold sweat dripping down his forehead. The strange, glowing pulse of light seemed to beckon them, its ethereal glow pulsating like a heartbeat. His crew, disoriented and exhausted, had no idea what was unfolding. The ships drifted toward the source, unable to stop or alter their course. As if the very laws of physics had been rewritten. They were trapped, helpless, and powerless in this unknown space. The eerie silence was broken only by the soft hum of the failing engines and the distant sounds of malfunctioning systems. Despite the overwhelming sense of danger, the crew couldn't tear their eyes away from the light. It was mesmerizing, like the pull of a deep ocean tide. Morrow's fingers clenched around the command console, but there was nothing he could do. Every button he pressed, every command he issued, was ignored by the ship's systems. It was as though They had been rendered irrelevant by some unseen force. Suddenly, the ships were pulled closer to the light, their engines sputtering and cutting out one by one. Captain Morrow's eyes widened as the flagship, despite all its technology and design, seemed to be moving on its own accord. The immense power of the force surrounding them was undeniable. A wave of realization washed over him. This wasn't just an anomaly in space. It was something far more intelligent, far more deliberate, and it had been waiting, hiding, hidden in plain sight. As the ships drifted closer, Morrow's mind raced with questions. What was this light? What force was controlling them? Why had no one dared to enter human space before? He knew one thing for sure. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and the truth of what lay in its space was far more terrifying than any of them could have imagined. The flagship came to a sudden, jarring halt, as though it had been caught by an invisible hand. The crew stumbled, disoriented by the sudden stillness. Before them, the light flared brighter, its radiance blinding for a split second. When it dimmed, they saw it. A colossal structure, floating in the distance like a phantom, was now visible in the heart of the glow. It was ancient, impossibly so. Towering spires rose from the surface, covered in alien script and symbols no one could decipher. The structure itself pulsed with the same light, as if it were alive. It was larger than anything the Joran Empire had ever encountered, larger than any ship, planet, or station they had ever seen. We, We've found it, Morrow whispered, his voice filled with awe and terror. The structure was the heart of the mystery, the source of the energy that had been preventing the Joran fleet from advancing. But now, as they gazed upon it, the full weight of their discovery began to sink in. This was no ordinary structure. It was not simply a relic of a long-dead civilization. It was a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. The structure's design was flawless, each surface etched with patterns and symbols that seemed to shift as the ships approached. The more they stared, the more they realized this was not just a place, it was a warning. The light emanating from the structure wasn't just some energy source. It was a communication, a signal. Whoever had built this had made sure that no species could ever approach Earth without facing the consequences. Morrow knew in his gut that this was the final test. This was the reason the Jorans and every other species had been kept away. The power of the structure was not just technological, it was an intelligence. A defense system guarding Earth, waiting for the moment when an invader would come too close. But now, it seemed, the moment had arrived. We need to pull back, now. One of the officers shouted, his voice rising in panic. This is beyond us. But it was too late. The force surrounding them pulsed once more, and the light from the structure grew brighter, sharper. Suddenly, the entire fleet was surrounded by an invisible field, locking them in place. The Jorans were helpless, trapped within this force. Every ship, every weapon, every defense system they had prepared for this moment was useless against the force that emanated from the heart of the structure. It was as if the structure had already anticipated their arrival and prepared to neutralize them. Then, in the midst of the chaos, an eerie sound filled the air. It wasn't a voice, yet it seemed to resonate deep within their minds. The message was clear, though unspoken. You have trespassed. You will face the consequences. The words, though not articulated in the traditional sense, seemed to echo in the minds of every Joran aboard the fleet. It was as if the very fabric of space itself had spoken, and in that moment, the Jorans understood that they were not dealing with an ordinary enemy. The entity controlling the space around them was ancient, far older than any civilization they had encountered. It was a force beyond comprehension, a force that had been lying dormant for eons, waiting for the moment when it would be needed. Captain Morrow's heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the structure. He had spent his entire career conquering and mastering the galaxy, but now, facing this force, he felt utterly insignificant. The Joran Empire, for all its power, had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated Earth, underestimated the ancient power hidden within human space. The truth was clearer than ever. No one was meant to enter this space. The Jorans had breached the barrier, and now they would face the ultimate consequences of their arrogance. And soon, the rest of the galaxy would learn the truth as well. The consequences of defying human space were far more severe than anyone could have imagined. Asterisk across the galaxy. The ripple effect of the Joran Empire's failed attempt to breach human space reverberated throughout every corner of the universe. News spread like wildfire, carried by both rumor and rarefied reports, about the disastrous consequences the Jorans had faced at the hands of a mysterious, seemingly sentient force guarding Earth. The implications of this event were sending shockwaves through the various factions and governments that had long held supremacy in the galaxy. The Jorans, once proud and unstoppable, were now reduced to mere whispers in the corridors of galactic power. Their fleet had been incapacitated, their commanders humiliated, and their vast empire left to scramble for answers. The consequences of their failure weren't just political or military. They had stumbled upon something far greater than any of them had anticipated, something that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy forever. On their homeworld, the Joran Emperor, Karel, convened an emergency council. His face, usually calm and controlled, now betrayed a rare look of worry. "We have underestimated Earth," he confessed, his voice cold but laden with frustration. "This force protecting human space is not some simple defense mechanism. It is ancient, deliberate, and far beyond our understanding." As Karel spoke, his advisors nervously shifted in their seats. The Emperor's words hung in the air like a dark cloud. The mighty Joran Empire, which had once claimed the stars as their own, was now staring into the unknown, facing a threat that they had no idea how to fight or even comprehend. The galaxy, however, wasn't just watching the Jorans. The event had drawn the attention of every major empire, every faction, and every race that had previously avoided human space. The silence surrounding Earth had always been a mystery, but now that silence was pregnant with fear. For the first time, there was an understanding that Earth was not just a minor player in the galactic stage, was something more. The Gala, a race of calculating tacticians and ruthless warriors, convened their council in their towering citadel on the gas giant Volta. They had long been aware of Earth's potential, but now they recognized that the human species had been hiding something far beyond any weapons they had seen before. "Do we risk it?" General Varak, the Galar war leader, asked as he studied the holographic display of Earth's position. "This barrier is more than just a defense. It's as if the very fabric of the galaxy is responding to any threat. How can we fight something like that?" His second-in-command, Officer Thera, shook her head. "We have no choice. If Earth has this kind of power, then every other faction will either fear it or seek to harness it. We need to be the first to understand it, or we risk falling behind." In the galactic arms race, the Galar were not alone in their concerns. The Arinth, a highly advanced species of intellectuals and scientists, also took notice of the events unfolding in human space. Unlike the Galar, who were bent on military conquest, the Aranth were fascinated by the science behind the force protecting Earth. To them, this was no longer a question of domination, it was a question of knowledge. What technology, what ancient science lay behind this power? Led by their supreme thinker, Elleris, the Aranth sent an expedition into human space. But their intentions were not the same as the Galars. They sought understanding, not conquest. The Aranth believed that within the secrets of Earth lay the keys to unlocking untapped knowledge. Secrets that could advance their own civilization beyond anything they had achieved before. Meanwhile, the Turians, a race of highly spiritual beings, saw the events surrounding Earth as more than just a galactic political issue. They viewed the mysterious force as a divine revelation, a warning sent by the universe itself. The Turians had long held the belief that the universe was alive, conscious even, and now they saw proof of this belief. To them, human space was not simply a place to conquer or study, it was a sacred ground, and whoever dared to challenge it would face divine retribution. But for all the different factions and species that now had their eyes on Earth, one thing was certain: Earth's secrets could no longer be kept hidden. The galaxy, once indifferent to the small, isolated human race, now knew that Earth was not just a backwater planet. It was a center of power, a point of convergence for forces far beyond anything anyone could have imagined. As the galaxy collectively realized the implications of the events at human space, new alliances were formed, and old ones were tested. The once polarized factions began to merge their resources, combining military power, technology, and intellect in an attempt to unlock the mystery of Earth. Some sought domination, others understanding, but all knew one thing: the universe was forever changed by the truth now emerging. The consequences of entering human space had only just begun to unfold. Every species now had to ask themselves, was it worth the risk? What would be their next move? Would they continue their attempts to breach the forbidden zone, or would they learn to respect the power that lay within? Meanwhile, back at the heart of human space, the ancient structure pulsed in the dark void, a silent sentinel waiting. It was not just a weapon, it was a warning. The truth had been uncovered, but the true cost of that knowledge was yet to be revealed. And in the silence of space, Earth watched, waiting for the galaxy to make its next move. The galaxy had never seen anything like it before. As news spread about the failed attempts to breach human space, factions across the stars scrambled to make sense of the events. What had once been seen as a quiet, unremarkable region was now the focal point of galactic uncertainty, shifting the entire balance of power in ways no one had predicted. The Jorans, broken and humbled, attempted to regroup, their once empire now mired in embarrassment and defeat. The Emperor, Carol, called for a rethinking of their entire strategy. His pride was shattered, and the galaxy could see it. No longer did the Jorans hold the unwavering confidence they once did. Their fleet, crippled and scattered, was now relegated to a shadow of its former glory. The very idea of conquering or dominating Earth seemed like a distant fantasy, one that could no longer be pursued without risking the wrath of whatever ancient power guarded it. But there were those who would not back down so easily. In the aftermath of the Joran defeat, the Galar had been quick to act, their leaders always seeking to turn any situation to their advantage, quickly gathered their forces and launched an expedition toward human space. Unlike the Jorans, the Galar had not been humbled by failure. They saw opportunity in the uncertainty. They knew that even if they could not conquer Earth, they might be able to broker an alliance with whatever force resided within the Forbidden Zone. The Gala were cunning, and their approach was one of diplomacy rather than brute force. Sent their emissaries, high-ranking diplomats and negotiators to the borders of human space, carrying with them advanced technology and promises of cooperation. Their goal was not to wage war, but to explore, to understand, and to offer their services in exchange for the knowledge they believed lay within the heart of Earth's defenses. The Gadala understood that the power protecting human space was not something to be taken lightly. They would approach it with caution, offering solutions rather than demands, and hope that whatever force stood guard would recognize their diplomatic intentions. Their message was simple: we seek to learn, not to conquer. Meanwhile, the Erinth, ever the intellectuals, had been monitoring the situation from the shadows. They had not acted out of fear or ambition, but rather out of a deep, insatiable curiosity. The events at human space had awoken something within their ranks, the desire for knowledge so profound that it could not be ignored. The Erinth believed that Earth was not just a place with a powerful defense system. It was a treasure trove of untapped science, a wellspring of ancient knowledge that could elevate their species to unimaginable heights. However, the Erinth had no intention of bargaining or attempting diplomacy. Instead, they prepared their most advanced expeditionary force, a fleet of scientific research vessels, each equipped with the finest technology their species had to offer. Their goal was not to engage with the mysterious force directly, but to study it from a distance, to learn everything they could without risking too much. They had no desire for worldly discovery, but the true turning point came when the Turians, the deeply spiritual and philosophical race, arrived at the borders of human space. Their beliefs about the universe were not rooted in the sciences, as the Erinths were, nor in the drive for power, as the Galas were. The Turians saw the barrier protecting Earth as something far beyond technology. It was divine, sacred, and the universe had decreed it so. They believed that the power guarding human space was not a mere physical entity, but a spiritual force, a manifestation of the universe's will itself. The Turians sent a single envoy and emissary chosen from their highest spiritual council, a being known as Ili. She was not a soldier, nor a scientist, but a messenger, a bridge between the divine and the mortal. The Turians believed that if anyone could communicate with the force protecting human space, it would be Iliana. She alone could seek the truth, not through technology or brute force, but through spiritual enlightenment. Her mission was not to conquer, negotiate, or even understand the power. Her mission was to honor it, to seek its blessing, and to ask for guidance. The emissary arrived at the borders of human space with a humble request. Let us learn, let us understand, and let us be worthy of the knowledge that lies within. As these various factions prepared to make their moves, the galaxy began to shift. Earth's power was no longer a secret. It was a force that could not be ignored. While some still clung to the idea of conquering or harnessing this power, others began to question if there was a deeper meaning to the mystery surrounding Earth. Was the galaxy truly ready to face the consequences of breaching human space? Or had they all underestimated the complexity and danger of a force so ancient, so deeply embedded within the fabric of the universe, that it could not be understood by simple ambition or conquest? And amidst all the chaos, Earth remained silent, but not passive. For the first time in history, Earth was no longer just a quiet planet on the edge of the galaxy. It was a center of power, a place where the universe's most powerful factions converged, each with their own agenda. Yet, Even as the galaxy prepared for its next move, there was one thing that was certain. The power guarding human space was not just a force to be reckoned with, it was a force that would change the course of galactic history forever. In the depths of the ancient structure, hidden within the heart of human space, a new light began to flicker. The entity within had been watching, waiting, and now it was time to make its move.